Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And the draft was a success in Pittsburgh. I will say I didn't make it up to it because of family stuff, but I was also watched like almost the entire thing over the weekend, like at least Saturday, right, and Friday. And I guess it was all at night. Yes, I did pretty much watch the whole thing. I don't think I missed anything because I was working on some of my class that I've been doing, lecturing, and I had to put together my materials. So I thought, what better way to do it while you're listening to the draft, right? Way to stay focused. And I will say they kept hyping up the attendance, and I don't remember the Detroit one at all, but there's no way they had what they announced 200 something thousand people on Saturday. That venue was empty. And why did they care? Like, why lie about it? That's the one thing that I don't get is I didn't even think Friday was that well attended. Thursday looked awesome on TV, looked packed. I know people that were there, right? Had family even go, and they said it was awesome. And I know you're kind of like going in and out. It's kind of like a block party type thing. And so you go there, you're like drinking beers or whatever you're doing, but they scan you in. And so I don't know if they're like scanning people in multiple times, because no one's staying around like on Saturday the entire time, especially when no one's there. And you can clearly see every time they were trying to like keep the shots tight, because I don't know if they give seats away or if you have to pay, but like they have blocks of teams set inside near the stage, and they want those to stay pretty much packed because that's the cutaway that the TV does. So like when the Detroit team's up or like Dallas is up, they have a group of players, or not players, they have a group of fans that they can kind of put the camera on to know, like to show like, hey, what's their reaction? And then it's crazy to me that the hosts are always like making fun of them. Like, yeah, they don't know this guy at all that they're drafting. Because who does know everybody? No one. The Steelers drafted that guy from Pittsburgh. He played at Navy. And I thought the way they tried to hype it up, I thought like, man, is there something special about this guy that I didn't know? And it's like, no, he's a hometown hero. He was from Pittsburgh, and I'm like, okay, I never heard of this guy. Right? I text.
Were you like America?
I text Matt because they talked about like his speed, but then they showed a bunch of highlights, and he was like getting run down, and so I thought like, like not a bad pick for like a running back, but the way they're talking about it is like he's going to be a steal, and they're comparing him to Christian McCaffrey, and I thought, man, I just watched the game film of him playing at Navy. And nothing against the armed forces, but like they don't play in one of the power 2 conferences, right? And everyone says like power 4. Like, no, there's still a big gap. So he doesn't play. He's like in the third level. That's like Maction level, right? I don't think they're in the Big 12. Yeah. You have the Big 10 and the SEC. Then you have like right below it, not that big of a gap. ACC, Big 12, and then I think the armed forces would be in that third tier, where like the Mountain West and probably I guess the Mountain West is Pac-12 now. If they try to put the Pac-12 in that ACC and Big 12 tier, nah, right? I'm not buying it.
What would be that AAC?
Yeah, and I think they would be on the same level as like the Mountain West, right? Because that's where UCF and all of them came from. Now, I don't know what they have left. USF? Probably.
Yeah, Memphis.
East Carolina, I think, is still in there. Because they were rivals for UCF, and then they fell off, which it probably has to drive the people down here crazy. Because they were at one point, they were like one of the highest attended, like group of 5 or whatever they were called at the time. And then they were like on top of the world, upsetting like Virginia Tech and NC State and all these teams. And then they started losing, and all the conferences are like, all right, time to expand. Sorry, East Carolina, you guys are out. We're going to take Central Florida. Because at first they were like, we're not taking any directional schools. And then they were like, psych, we are taking Central Florida. Just kidding from before. South Florida, though, and East Carolina, you guys are still out. We're going to take these guys and see what happens. Because I even forgot for basketball, they were like showing, that was that documentary I talked about last week where they had the Kansas guy and they were showing highlights against UCF. And I was like, why does he have highlights against UCF? And then I'm like, oh, wait, he's in their conference, I think. Makes sense why they have that. But yeah, that's what stood out to me on the draft. What stood out to you as you were watching it?
I was surprised at their first round draft pick because I saw they were slated to go after the USC wide receiver Lemon, and Philly jumped ahead of them to take him.
Now, do you think that was set up? The controversy or whatever?
I'm sure there is a little bit of smoke to it. Because I was surprised that they ended up going with the offensive tackle. And again, like my personal take on it is until you have that situation under control, nothing else matters. Because there's still the issue at quarterback. And you were saying about the comparison of the running back from Navy to Christian McCaffrey. And I thought it was funny because you look at the third round draft pick and they picked Drew Aller up from Penn State. And his measurables are almost identical to Will Howard that they drafted last year. And he couldn't crack the lineup.
Well, that's what made me laugh because Will Howard, I think we talked about it on the show. Like we've heard from insiders that they're saying that he's not going to be able to make the cut long term, right? That's why they're keeping Mason Rudolph around. Now, Drew Aller, I think has, from a talent point, has higher upside, but the way he's been playing, he's like on the Will Howard level. So they're almost hoping, in my mind, that if they get Aaron Rodgers signed, they put in the restriction on him, the free agent restriction, where if someone offers him another contract while he's not signed, they can match it. And if he doesn't make a decision before training camp, his only option to come back would be for the Steelers, I think, if I read that correctly. So I think what they're doing is if he doesn't come back, you're going to have a three-way quarterback battle where they're hoping that one of these guys can make the jump. Because like my main thing with Will Howard is he played at Kansas State. He wasn't very consistent. I didn't think he was going to work out at Ohio State. I was wrong about that. But again, Ohio State is loaded on offense. I've said this about quarterbacks from like Alabama as well. Like the Rams took Simpson, extraordinary reach. There's no way he wouldn't have been available later in the first round if they would have traded back or whatever. I mean, for people that don't remember, I'm pretty sure he's the same quarterback that was handed the keys as like a freshman or whatever, like whenever Michigan won the national championship a couple years ago, and he almost blew their entire season against South Florida, right? And he's the same guy that didn't put up any points against Indiana and came out and talked about how their defense was just showing base looks. And I'm like, dude, that makes you sound horrible, right? I don't know how other way, but he hasn't impressed me, right? And so he sat behind Milroe. Milroe didn't come in and light up the league, or I don't even know if he even got any playing time, right? So you're telling me the guy that couldn't beat out Milroe is now the second best QB in the draft? And the Rams are like talking like he's some secret. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. And so I think in terms of like top end talent, there's no reason. I know Drew Aller has his issues. Some of those, could they be related to James Franklin? I don't know. Right? Is he going to be coached up at Pittsburgh? Also, probably not. Right? Are we getting? So yeah, that's another negative. we're talking about here, where some of these quarterbacks land in better spots. But maybe that's the style that he's used to, and the Steelers thought, well, we can make him serviceable. And who knows? Maybe he will make a giant leap. It's not like Penn State didn't have a talent advantage. It just wasn't like Will Howard was thrown to first-round picks against teams that weren't even like on the same level of defense at all. And they weren't lighting the scoreboard up, remember? Will Howard lost to Michigan 13-10. He couldn't score on Michigan. That's why it was a red flag for me. I don't care what he did in the playoffs after that, whatever. Right? You have a bunch of first-round picks, and now in hindsight, we know Michigan's coach is texting chicks online during the game, like during halftime. Not even invested in the game, and Will Howard couldn't get it done. That's why it's kind of like the same thing with Drew Aller. Like, yeah, you're in the Final Four, right? You're playing Notre Dame. It's probably going to go to overtime or whatever. I can't remember how that game went down. Don't make a mistake. And then he fumbled or threw that interception like late. Whatever it was, he got the turnover. And it's like, dude, that's like some guys I think have that clutch gene where you're just waiting for them, like Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, where you're just waiting for them to make their move and come back. And other guys, you're just waiting for them to screw it up. And Drew Aller to me is one of those guys that you're just waiting to screw it up. Will Howard, I didn't feel that way about. I just felt like he could be better. And I know Ryan Day probably played him concussed in that Michigan game. Or at least at the worst, he was playing hurt because he got rocked early. So maybe that played a point into it. But again, it wasn't like Ohio State was lighting people up like I've seen other Ohio State teams do when Will Howard was there. And so I want to see. I am kind of curious to see.
I mean, like, I think they have obviously a prototype in mind that they go after Aller, unless the management was just looking at it from a standpoint of, we just want to sell jerseys, and we know we've made some money off of Kenny Pickett. So now we'll just pander to the Penn State fans and get Aller, just cater to the other side.
I've seen Penn State fans complaining that they can't get away from the guy. Now they're stuck with him again. Pickett didn't work out too bad, right? He's still in the league as a backup, I think. Right? He's floating around.
He was just cut by the Raiders.
As part of the Raiders. Hey, we're a mess of an organization. What are we doing over here? Decisions. Signing Kirk Cousins, bringing in Mendoza. And, I mean, Mendoza, first-round pick, I thought, that was a lock. And then you see all those sites where you can, bid on, who's the first-round pick. You can bet on that. To me, that seems like, is that, illegal? I know some of those sites, I've seen a lot of people say that after you win a couple of bets, they start to lock your account so you can't bet anymore. And I mean, I've seen that happen firsthand. So it's like they want losers in there, right? They're like, oh, you got to be on the loser list to keep betting on these quarterback things, right? Everyone knows, but they needed some dummy to say you know what? They're going to take Ty Simpson number one. No, they're not. But they have no other quarterbacks. You probably saw it, but my man Arch Manning, projected number one, him and Dante Moore, they're battling it out next year. You go ahead and get early odds on that, Matt.
It'll be Trinidad.
No, it'll be. Is he still coming back to play? He's 27, isn't he? He's has to be older. I mean, Dante Moore is old too.
They're just going to keep tying it up in court.
Well, I'm getting tired of the court eligibility thing. I've seen a couple of the basketball because I've been keeping an eye on it just because of the national champs trying to reload, right? And I see teams that are sitting on some of these guys, maybe not in the Big Ten even, but they're sitting on guys hoping that they get their fifth year because they're trying to go to that thing where now you get 5 years to play for. And so people that, I don't know, I guess if people that played for 4 years or whatever, they're hoping that they can get a fifth year and they're making the cutoff August. There's no way that that's not going to be challenged in court. And we already had teams like Alabama basketball playing guys that were NBA guys, right? In the middle of the year. They brought that guy from the G League in and he played and was dominating. And then they're like, oh, you know what? Never mind. Like the judge was like, this is ridiculous. They're going to like take our wins away. And if they don't take the wins away, then what's the point? You can't tell me like, oh, we're going to go ahead and take away what Iowa wins and Michigan State wins in football, like randomly. But Alabama's going to randomly play an NBA guy, clearly ineligible, right? And the NCAA better take those wins away. Because if they don't, then at some point, if I'm Iowa, from like texting Cade or whatever that was, like an hour early or whatever they said they had the footage of, how is he ineligible? Right? Punish him, whatever. Kirk Ferentz already sat out a game. How are they vacating wins if Alabama can put a guy in that's clearly ineligible and just play him and be like, we didn't know. We put it in the court system, right? And they said they didn't know yet. So we were pretending like it was a yes because that's what they did. The court, they filed the injunction.
If you didn't say no.
The court was like, we're thinking on it. And so they were like, we're going to play him until you tell me no. Right? I'm going to ask for forgiveness. And
I got your no.
That's like the SEC thing. I think, and I honestly think, because they weren't the only ones, right? I don't even know what the other teams were that were trying to play around with ineligible people from the NBA, because there were some other teams too. But I think the SEC and some of those other conferences saw how good Duke and Arizona and Michigan were, and they said, all right, we have no chance unless we start bringing in some ringers here. Do it. Right? Bring these guys down. We need a team. We need a dog in this fight. We need a guy to make the Final Four. And then they had to cut him, and then SEC didn't make the Final Four. So in football, if they're doing it in basketball, you better believe they're doing it in football too. That's why all the crying is still out there. The Big Ten had like the most first round picks or whatever. And then like for the first time in a while. And then I saw the SEC was promoting like they had like the most picks. It's like, okay, awesome guys. Like the shift is already happening. First, it takes over the top end talent, right? You have the teams winning the national championship. You have the most guys going in the first round, and then it will be a trickle down because that's how the SEC sold it, right? They did their thing where like, oh, it just means more here. And they showed that during the draft. Like every time an SEC guy got picked, they had it go across as a banner on top. Did you notice that? And I didn't see them do that for any other conference. So it just seems weird. And I know ESPN's in bed with them and they're the one doing the broadcast on ABC. And it's like, okay, I was glad that it was all on ABC because I know they made that shift a while ago, but in the past, like it used to only be like the first day. I think on regular TV, and then everything else is on ESPN or the NFL Network or some other network. But now it's gotten so big that you can watch the entire draft for free as long as you buy rabbit ears for like $20 or whatever and put it on your TV, which is nice. Right? Every day of the draft, it gets funnier because they start to cut like their high end regular commentators and they just bring in these other random guys that I don't know. Like it's like first, like Herb Street was the first one to go. Then like the second day, like they got rid of, I think Saban and Dez, and they're like, all right, we're really phoning it in here. We just have a bunch of random guys no one knows, like making jokes and talking about past drafts. And I'm like, oh, come on. We don't even know you guys. How am I supposed to remember what you talked about on the draft? But I thought it was funny they brought out the Permanis and like no one's eating it. Like Kirk turned and gave his away. He didn't even try it. Like, you know how they normally used to try it? They had like those, it looked like, I could be wrong, but it looked like they had like the funnel cake fries. You know how they have like, they make those when they put like honey on them or whatever, like their dessert fries. Yeah. And every time they brought something out to eat, Dez was going right for the sweets. And I thought, man, what a crazy guy on TV. He's like drinking the one milkshake they brought out. It's only him and Reese Davis. Like they're both drinking like milkshakes and trying the sandwiches. And like Desmond's like, hey, bring me some wings, bro. And I thought that's a guy I'd want to hang out with, right? Those like I'm not a fan of Reese Davis at all. I think he's very anti-Michigan, I think. And so having him on there, but at least if I'm going to be hanging out, like watching the draft and you're having like a party and people are giving you like food, like, yeah, I'd want it to be like a relaxed thing, not like, no, we're not going to do this, right? We're not eating on camera. I don't want to make a mess of myself. Go for it. Go all in. There can be a balance between having like a Pat McAfee, like crazy screaming guy, doing whatever. Like I don't see the appeal of having that as like the main host. And I'm glad they didn't have him there hyping people up because I think it would have been horrible. But he announced a pick or something. I saw him out there.
Yeah.
Because like him and Mark Ingram, he's out there yelling. And they like kept highlighting it as like a highlight of the draft. I thought, how's that a highlight? Yelling about Ravens in Pittsburgh? Truth be told, I don't even remember him playing for the Ravens. I don't remember him playing around that. He didn't last that long after Alabama. After he said it, I think he did have one good year, maybe 2 good years. He was almost like he came out and should have like started reading his stats so people could remember. Because I mean, like I watch a lot of Steelers games, and in terms of people like from Baltimore that we don't like, Mark Ingram is not on the list. Not gonna lie. Is he on your list, Matt?
He is now.
I know. Now, if they bring back Derrick Henry or someone, like, yeah, that he could have been scary at Baltimore. Heck, Mark Ingram could have been on the Super Bowl team. He would have been around that time, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember who their running back was, though. I remember the Niners more losing that Super Bowl than Baltimore winning it with Flacco. Kaepernick threw that pass, and it just went through the hands. If they would have connected like Roethlisberger did to Santonio Holmes that one year, then no one would remember Baltimore at all. That first like defense only Super Bowl way back when. They wouldn't have had anyone to bring up there. So, let's see. Oh, Jeremiah Love, bro. They took a running back at number 3. The Cardinals did. I don't know if any Cardinals fans listen to this. Horrible draft by them. I don't know what they were thinking. He's now making the most any running back has made in the NFL all time. Why?
Good for him.
And then Notre Dame had another running back in the first round. And so now I saw all the jabroni recruiting services saying that if you're a running back, you should go to Notre Dame. We don't want that happening. Right? They're not even in a conference. Why should they start promoting like that they're making all these great running backs? Because we don't even know. They could also be busts. They're trying to bring back. I saw the article where they were saying that, and they were bringing back running backs that were Brian Kelly guys. That's how like disconnected they were. It's like they ran like Brian Kelly left because he wasn't getting the support. Freeman doesn't get to like claim running backs that Brian Kelly brought in, and even I think the ones that got drafted, they were saying those might have been Brian Kelly recruits. I can't remember for sure. I didn't look at the thing. I was going by the comments on Twitter. I don't follow Notre Dame as much because, they're not that relevant. Losing to some action every once in a while. Getting lucky in the playoffs one time. Other than that, they've been a victim of the system. Or not really a victim for their fans, right? I mean, I guess it is. When you get in there and you have false hope and then you get crushed in the national championship game because you're like the only other undefeated team, when if your name was like TCU or Utah, you would not even be in the game at all, right? You'd be playing in like the Orange Bowl or like maybe even the Citrus Bowl. But they bring you in and then Alabama stomps you, and you're like, oh, how did that happen? Well, I don't get it. So now with the playoffs, and I don't want to talk about basketball too much today, but they're expanding the NCAA tournament. So the expansion of the football playoff is coming too. They flat out said, hey, we're not expanding because of money, but we're expanding because we need more power teams in the tournament. And I'm like, okay, it is money, right? You're not bringing access to lower conferences, right? No one wants to see like a horrible Auburn team that got crushed by Michigan by like 40 points or whatever it was in the NCAA tournament. They don't, right? They have no chance. People are just saying that this year you could have cut the tournament down because a lot of teams didn't have a chance. And you think with NIL and the way things are going that by expanding it, you're going to give more of a chance? No. You're just going to give mediocre coaches another way to go in. They already had it. I said before, they're complaining about Cinderellas and how their people are losing interest because you're putting in a bunch of mid teams. And so then these Cinderellas have to win extra games to even get into the chance to get an upset. Like they're playing like loser Texas teams or loser Auburn teams or whatever in these play-in games. And so for them to go on a run, it's an extra step. Where if the college football playoff, if it expands, it better include other like smaller conferences auto bid. At least that's what I want. Because I think you're going to start to see a shift where the money's not going to be endless. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe college football is that strong where if you do have like all these power teams in the playoffs every year, maybe they can cut loose some of these smaller like Sun Belt conferences, which to be honest, do we need Sun Belt in? Probably not. Right? I don't know what teams are in there, but like there is a clear divide. But I do think you need a mix. Like it can't just be the Big Ten and the SEC. Because you're going to lose a ton of people. Like as it stands right now, like you would lose entire states. Like North Carolina doesn't have a team in either of those conferences. And that goes like across the board where, yeah, the Big Ten's been cherry picking major like states out there. But there are some like Utah that has two teams in like the Big 12 that wouldn't be in there. I don't know off the top of my head what other states. Arizona, right, wouldn't be included. And so you're already losing millions of people in those states. And I'm telling you, they only watch their team or like their conference. If you don't have an in, they're not watching. You see the map every year, right? Like they show the college football map. States that don't have college football teams that are good don't watch college football, including like New York or whatever. They just watch pro sports. And like, if you think like North Dakota or South Dakota, like, you know, if we just make a Power 2 conference, like these other states might start watching. No, they're not going to start watching. Especially because a lot of the stuff that people like complain about or like brag about is like academics related too. Still. So that's the one thing that kind of sells it to the edge where people are like, these are just minor league teams. Like, no, a lot of the trash talk is still about like the other guys, graduates, like delivering pizza or not being able to read. Like, you don't see that in the NFL, right? Like, could you imagine like coming across a Ravens fan, be like, bro, deliver my pizza? Like, no, in college, that's like funny, right? But in NFL, it makes no sense. It's like a totally different thing. But I saw that happen. I see they're trying to do it with college or with football, I mean, and with the NFL draft, you see these guys getting drafted from the smaller conferences. So we know they have top end talent. You see guys getting cut from major programs and then getting drafted on like another team. And that's why I think the transfer portal is great. I think having that movement around and having guys kind of, I'm kind of worried about the 5-year thing. I don't want guys staying in college for like forever. But there were a couple of guys, I can't remember if it was Will Howard and someone else, but like they said they were making more money in college than what they do in the NFL right now. And we know it's true. right? Like they paid a ransom to get Will Howard to transfer because Ohio State had no other quarterback ready. If the transfer portal didn't exist, Ohio State and Ryan Day never win a national championship. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could say the same thing for Michigan basketball. Like, I'm not going to lie about it. Like, you bring in the transfers. I mean, maybe it could have worked like on some level because like Dusty May, like you have a new coach come in, and sometimes new coaches do get a lot of transfers. So like maybe that one would have possibly lined up, but like Ryan Day had already been there for years. So like he wouldn't have got that new head coach transfer bump. That was clearly a money thing where they said like, yo, money. And they, all right, on the table, we're good to go. Because I hear that where I'm even hearing that with like the Michigan basketball, one of the guys that they just signed, supposedly, as I'm hearing it, that he has a handler, right? So you have a handler come in and they handle all the business stuff. So he's like has a life coach or someone. He just like has following him around. Like, oh, come on. And like they said before, Michigan never would have touched a guy with like a handler. But now they're bringing in like the GM from like the Patriots when Belichick was there. And you're bringing in GMs in college to do all of this financial stuff. It's going to be a little bit different. And so I wonder how many players are going to start to like stay. When you know, hey, if I leave early, I'm going to get drafted. Or some guys like, is it Pavia, the guy from Vanderbilt? Didn't get drafted. Yeah. He was like the runner-up in Heisman, the first Heisman finalist to not get drafted in like over a decade because obviously his attitude and his height. But then I saw that Baltimore signed him to a guaranteed 3-year deal. And I thought like, why would they, it has to be low, right? Because if he's undrafted and didn't seem like any other teams were even offering him, why would they have to guarantee 3 years for him? Because that kind of struck me. But I mean, I guess if you're doing 3 years of the minimum, you can stash him on a roster as like a practice squad guy. And if he doesn't work out, I'm sure they have something that they can cut him with, right? Like, yo, you're going to be walking. I don't know how the guaranteeds work. Is it a guaranteed locked in every year? I don't know. Because I have a hard time thinking that they're going to guarantee his full salary every year if he doesn't play. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is there anyone else that you saw in the draft that stood out to you?
I feel like every year between the Jets and Raiders, there's always so much hype around their picks, and it just never goes to fruition. So for a change, I'm actually holding my judgment towards them until they prove that they can put those pieces into play and actually do something with them. Because the reporting, I felt like this year was a little bit different, where I felt like for the most part, everyone was just content with where they were at. The only real big story that they kept playing up was LSU's quarterback and why he wasn't getting drafted. Like, it was kind of similar to what they did with Shedeur Sanders last year, except they weren't really pushing as heavy on it because there was some injury concerns coming out of that.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was wondering if he might even be better long-term than some of the other quarterbacks taken before him. I think it's a different beast. I mean, we were just talking last week episode about players in college wearing the wrong size shoes. And I'm just talking about handlers 5 minutes ago. So, like, you have guys come in and they just get bad advice. And you get to the NFL, and it's more like a job, like you're kind of away from that. You're not at school. You don't have family kind of hanging around and doing all this stuff. Like, maybe, yeah, depending on where you are. But a lot of these guys, like, they're in the big city. I don't hear a lot about, like, you hear about college guys moving and then their families, like, getting jobs around the school and, like, they're moving with them. But a lot of times in the NFL, you really don't hear that as much. Like, oh, you know what? my whole family's moving to Baltimore. Like, no, they're not. Right? Like they might move to like a suburb kind of farther away, but when you're training with the NFL, you have more responsibilities on your side, especially in the off season. You see guys like put on tons of weight and come into camp like out of shape after their first like year, and they just don't have it. But I think from the injury side of things, you just get different advice. Because I can't remember I've seen players in college get injured, transfer to other schools because the first school will shut them down, and then they end up getting like a surgery that like, oh, do you need the surgery? Like, no, you could probably just rehab it and heal it and see how it goes. Which, as I was doing some of the draft stuff, they were talking about someone's ACL. I don't know if it was the same guy, but supposedly there's a guy that had like both ACLs injured. And they talk about like how sometimes when you do that and they reconstruct them on both sides, it's better than just having one that's kind of like imbalanced. And so as I was looking the player up or whatever, I came across a more recent study from like 2023 where they said that you can fully, they used to think that if you tore like an ACL, it wouldn't ever heal, right? Kind of like a horse, you know how they put them down with Kentucky Derby coming up this weekend. Like horse goes down, he stays down. But then they did a study where they took people that had the injury and instead they just braced it at, I think it was like a 90-degree angle or something. I don't know if it was that drastic, right? Like one of those scooters. But they said that without any surgery, in a couple of weeks, your ligaments will grow back together. Even if you don't have it braced, having it braced helps like keep them connected and like more of it connected so that it grows back together faster. And then it's more of a waiting and slowly stretching and getting like the blood flow in there. But they were saying that the recovery from like a torn ACL without surgery is almost 100% because you're not taking a ligament from somewhere else and bringing it in. Like your body will naturally heal. And I kind of always thought that because like in the past, like in history, even like 100 or 200 years ago, people weren't having surgeries to like heal themselves and they needed to hunt or work to live. Otherwise what? They would die. So I was curious to see like, your body should heal that stuff. Because like, I know I had the same thing. I talked about it before where that just playing baseball, overworking, trying to do different things. I hurt my elbow. Luckily, I'm ambidextrous, right? I was pitching right-handed, hurt it. I thought, like, I know I'm not getting the call up. Like, I already went to the tryouts or whatever. So I just started throwing left-handed full-time then. Because they were like, you can get surgery or over time this will heal. You might not ever throw. I mean, I know that's false now because I'm playing softball. You have to play right-handed, right, if you're playing utility. Because if you're left-handed, you're really restricted to only first base and outfield, right? But if you're playing in college, like I only played outfield anyway, so like or pitching, which I could do both, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, you could play wherever, right-handed. So like you have different things like that, and I wonder how many guys just don't have that luxury of like, okay, just wait, right? You do like hurt like a specific thing, your knee is going to be a little bit different. Because you never know. Like how many people, like I hear people hurting their shoulder. I know I had a buddy that hurt his shoulder, had surgery, didn't go well, immediately tore it again, had another surgery. I think he ended up having 3 or 4 surgeries. And it's like, oh man, what if he didn't? Right? I don't know how bad the tear was or whatever, but like, what if he just didn't have it? And he just, took time off and rested instead of rushing back out there and playing baseball again. Could he have healed up? Because these guys in the NFL now, I know if I had the choice, knowing that there might be a way to naturally heal, I see guys in basketball. I think Case in Michigan's guy, that the backup point guard that I said was going to be a big impact possibly and might cost him the national championship, which luckily it didn't. He's having his ACL surgery. He's out for an entire year. They're saying that if you just brace it, you can have fully healed in 6 months. Now, maybe I don't know what their study was on. I'd have to dig into it more. But if surgery is you're back in 12 and there's a natural way to do it, maybe in 6, I think I'm trying the natural way. Right? It wasn't that bad. He came back into the game. He played the second half at Michigan, right, for that Michigan game when he got hurt. So it couldn't have been super bad where he needed like the main surgery, especially because he didn't go right away. So I don't think it was fully torn. Like I said before, like I had surgery. I kind of regret it because it definitely limited mobility, and it's taken a while to kind of get back, even now working out. But who knows? Some of these guys in the NFL, if you have a chance to, hey, get an extra year in college, get paid more, and potentially recover on your own pace, especially if you're coming back from an injury and using that as a redshirt year, why would you not? And then give it a full go in the NFL. But they have to make a decision because you still have COVID people going through. And if you make this like 5-year thing, commitment come through, and you have people getting paid for NIL, where now if they're getting paid as freshmen coming in as a recruiting class, you force your red shirt like that first year, or maybe you don't, and then you have a fallback injury year if you're a high enough recruit where you're like, I can get drafted in 3. But just in case, like let's say your junior year, everything's going well, you're like a Heisman finalist, whatever, double ACL or something goes down, like then you would still even have another year to get that 5th year, and I'm all for it. Right? If that's the way they want to go. I just think that they need to make the decision, get the cutoff date, and then stop some of these people begging for extra years. I know that's like a roundabout way to go back to that Chambliss thing you brought up.
Yeah, and I thought that they're doing a better job of recognizing like this COVID era is done, and not awarding these guys with ridiculous continuations.
Because when did we talk about the revenue thing like a couple weeks ago? You see teams complaining about it. Hey, we need to do something with revenue or whatever, or we need to bring in more money, or we need to do X, we need to do this. Okay, awesome. But the players are making the money. And if you have to keep paying extra players that aren't really playing or giving an impact, at some point, when are the donors going to have like some type of remorse / just stop giving? I mean, look at Duke basketball right now. They haven't won. The ACC hasn't won. They have the longest drought. They're paying top dollar for recruits and transfer portals. I think they're one of a couple teams that had like top recruiting and top transfer portal. And if they don't start winning national championships, like, are their fan base going to start to like phone it in? Because it seems like North Carolina didn't have buy-in. They run their coach out. They bring in this NBA guy. If that doesn't work out, like eventually you're going to see like some of these teams are going to go through a Nebraska-like stretch where it just doesn't work out. And yeah, the fan support's there, but it's at a level where it's not enough to get back to that high level. And it's great, like selling out stadiums, selling tons of merch. We don't have the donors to bring in a top recruiting class though, but we still should be better than what we are. So it's like in a weird mix. And I think some of these schools are going to see that, especially with like, hey, we need to expand the playoffs so that we're making it every year. And then our coach can kind of just sit back and never win. Okay. Like, awesome.
I think it's what's your fan base's realistic expectation. I think that's the more important thing. Like when you're Duke, like you are expecting to compete at a high level, and like what does that look like? Because if you're saying it's make the tournament, advance couple rounds deep, and Like that may be a level of success that some people in the fan base are happy with.
And I think that's where we've seen the slide decks. Was that last year? Where I went through, I've seen a slide deck presentation that these NIL groups are giving where they're trying to bring in other donors and they're going to the school admins saying like, hey, you need to help us fundraise. We're at this level and this level is enough to get us competing for 8-win seasons in football, possibly like division championships, maybe on like a great run, a conference championship. And I think like with Duke right now, if like using their basketball example, if the donors are saying like, we're at this level, we're still behind Kentucky, whatever. Kentucky is even in a worse position because they're paying for national championship level. They're not even getting conference level, which is insane in basketball because you really only need 5 guys and then some role players that you can coach up. So like Kentucky's paying for that. That's 100% on the coach. They're going to run that coach out of town. Like guaranteed. And football is a little bit different because, yeah, you can pay for the top roster. Like Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama, like looking back at the graphs that they've been putting out around the draft, they've had top talent for how many years? And yeah, they've won a lot of championships between them. But some of those, like Ohio State, for the level of talent that they've had, they have not won as much as they should have. Right? In my lifetime, Ohio State has 3 national championships. Michigan has 2. Right? And Ohio State's been in the top 3 of recruiting for the past 15 years. How long? When was Urban there? So you're telling me in that same time frame, they're happy? I know it drives their fans nuts. They always say like, well, we have a bunch of Big Ten championships. And now you don't even have that. Right? They haven't won a Big Ten championship since COVID. And so if you're like, hey, we're Ohio State, we're raising tons of money. And then, yeah, I'm hearing from some Ohio State fans that they're saying that their donors aren't as invested because they're seeing that, hey, maybe we don't have to pay as much because we've been paying X for how many years getting like the top recruiting classes. We couldn't even win. Now we had that one weird year where we didn't even win the conference and we won the national championship. And that's going to be the new normal. Teams they're not going to care about the conference championship. And that could even just go away. And then if that goes away, Ohio State probably has a couple of ties. I'm sure when they played Michigan in that one year, they were both, oh no, I guess they played in the regular season. They didn't really meet in the Big Ten championship. But the other year, like when they played Indiana, I think they both were undefeated maybe. So like, yeah, you're going to go into the championship game. You're not going to have that. You're just going to share a Big Ten title. I think that would help out for some coaches and NIL groups, especially for some of the smaller schools. Like if Northwestern knows that like they can promote a shared Big Ten championship as a Big Ten championship, that might get them a little bit more buy-in. But then again, you're competing against how many other schools? I think it would directly impact the Big 12 and ACC schools more, I think. Where if you can sell, hey, we're the best team in the ACC like Miami's selling right now. Look at all these wins we're having. Do we win the ACC? No, we don't care about that. Right? We have never won the ACC. Are you serious? Like, we don't care about that at all. We're caring about trying to win the national championship, and we were pretty close last year. Like, I've literally seen some of the things that their fans, like their donors are putting out, and that's all they're talking about. They're not bringing up the ACC at all. But then, like, whenever they're getting recruited against in the ACC, if some school comes in, like Clemson, and they're saying, like, hey, we could win the ACC, Miami's going to tell that recruit, like, we don't care about that. Go to Clemson, win the ACC. We're going to be trying to go for a national championship here, and they haven't done that in a decade. So, like, the cycle's closing for some of these schools. But who knows? The last thing I had, and then we'll see if there's anything else you want to talk about. The Carnell Tate, where they drafted him 4 overall. Because I don't want to just call out Love as the Cardinals picking, but I think Tennessee drafted Tate. And I saw a lot of people saying he wasn't even like the second best, or he wasn't even the leading receiver on his team. So why would they stretch for like a number 2 wide receiver? I think you're getting to the point now where are these Ohio State guys like top talent wide receivers? Or are they just system wide receivers? And I know it's a little bit different for wide receivers because Ohio State has been taking like the number 1 wide receiver recruit in the country and really just tossing the ball up to him until he just gets drafted. So are they really developing them, or are they just bringing in the top talent? Because that's one position where the development might not matter as much, and that's usually a position where lower schools can hit. Like you can have a great wide receiver come from like Toledo or somewhere. And like even Antonio Brown was like from a MAC school, right? So you have these guys come out and they're like, oh, these receivers are like awesome. But at some point, do teams just start to get, okay, we're not getting our return, right? Like they every year they hype up Chris Olave. You wait for him to turn it on. Harrison Jr., right? This guy's going to be the next big thing. Fantasy owners know he hasn't been doing anything, right, Matt? You had him.
Yeah.
Why are you playing him? Right? Garrett Wilson, we had someone like talking about like how they kept Garrett Wilson for like super cheap. And maybe it's just because he's on the Jets. But is he stacking up? No. Like Justin Jefferson comes out, he's better than all those guys. And there are other wide receivers like even like Antonio Brown. None of them have been on like an Antonio Brown level. I think you have to go back to what? Michael Thomas, maybe? Is that who the other, like the old Urban Meyer? He's probably the best one out of Ohio State. And that's before this run. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up. Best Ohio State receiver. Because I would think it would be him. Right now, they talk about Smith and Jigba, and they paid big money on him. But I don't know, if I'm being honest. Because like they're talking about like Chris Carter. Yeah, you have to go back. Joey Galloway, Ted Ginn Jr., Michael Thomas, Santonio Holmes. And none of the new ones are even... They have Jeremiah Smith up there. Like, okay, yeah, he's not in the NFL yet though, buddy. So ranking him as like one of the best is going to be it. Maybe McLaurin. He's still out there, right? Is he with Washington still?
Yeah.
Who else would even be current? I don't even see like any of the other current ones on here. And I know they're all like kind of younger, so maybe they would start to get on some of the best of like NFL lists. But I know I see them from drafts all the time. I always joke about it. Like I got to draft one Buckeye for my fantasy team, right? One of them got to be okay. But I don't see any like must-haves from there. And so like,
well, the crazy thing with Marvin Harrison in fantasy is that like he could get you 38 points or he can get you -2. And it's like, how bad do you need him? Like he wasn't a dependable fantasy guy.
yeah, so I'm looking at the stats from last year. Smith and Jigba was like the leader in receiving yards. So he would be like the highest, right? But out of the other lists, like there's none. Nakua, Chase, Brown, St. Brown, or Russ St. Brown. No, that's his first name, right? CeeDee Lamb, like Neighbors, Rice, Jefferson, Drake London. So like there are a ton out there. So for Carnell Tate to come in, and honestly, he hasn't even been. He didn't impress me that much. I saw that people were saying that was the opposite. Like, oh, he was under the table, right? I mean, he was there for the 13-10 Michigan-Ohio State game. These guys should have been putting up tons of yards on Michigan. And they didn't. So like that stays with me, dude. That stays with me whenever you have guys and then you see that they're out there. Lemon was small. I liked his ball skills. That's why I thought going back to that Pittsburgh thing, because I think we kind of just cut it off. I don't know if because like they have the cameras up on the multi-view, right? They were showing him on the phone. Could Philly have seen him on the phone and decided to hurry up and pull the trigger on the trade, knowing that that's who they wanted and they knew the Steelers were going to take him? Maybe. Like I saw some Philly guys saying that the Steelers could be open to an investigation now because you're not supposed to be talking with players if they're on the clock. Like if they're talking to a team on the clock, but he wasn't talking to the Cowboys. So I don't know how that would shake out. But I'm not going to lie, I don't even know who Tennessee's quarterback is right now. And they're going to bring in a wide receiver first? I don't like it. Is there anything else you want to talk about this week?
No, that's about it.
Is it Cam Ward? I'm looking up to see if they brought in anyone else.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I think it's still going to be Cam, right? So,
yeah.
Who knows? We'll see how it goes. Yeah, they have Will Levis. I thought they brought in someone else. Oh, Trubisky, maybe? I don't know why I'm keeping the show going as I talk through Tennessee quarterbacks because they're not going to be competing. But that's it. If there's anything you want us to talk about as we're wrapping up draft coverage, getting into some more of like the deeper offseason now with football ending, let us know. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.